Hello. So,
Hello.
hi. So, hi everyone. So great to see everyone joining. I see Harris or Harry underscore S4. Hi. Um, as a reader, I'm always wanting to hear authors talk about their books and then have readers answer questions about them. So here's my book, The Egyptian Heir. And I'm going to try to answer fellow readers' questions and listen to what they enjoyed and did not enjoy about The Egyptian Heir. The Egyptian Heir is a young adult worldly adventure with a blossoming romance, chilling criminals, and mystical diamonds. This is the first book of a trilogy. It revolves around Cassandra Waters, or Cassie is her nickname that she prefers, who is a troubled, headstrong teenager seems to whose troubles only seem to increase after her parents' death forces her family to move to Saskatoon. There she meets the bully Zach, who may be more than he appears, and learns that the story about Pharaoh Obuko, a story that her grandfather once told her, may center around her. She learns to overcome the challenges of grief, accepting family, trusting an undercover agency, and has to overcome a threat of criminals after her. So I want to welcome my lovely guests who are here who have read The Egyptian Heir. Rebecca, hi.
Hi.
Um, she is actually the illustrator of the cover of The Egyptian Heir, so awesome. If you want to see the full cover of The Egyptian Heir, you can actually go to my website, theegyptianheir.com. The link is in my bio. And you can see the full cover of what it is, because unfortunately I chose not to use the entire illustration. She is an artist and works with animals and is an avid reader. Amanda, hi.
Hi.
She is also an avid reader and lovers of books. She has different tastes, which is awesome, and she also works with animals. So, woo! So, hey guys, we're gonna start with some tough questions. If anyone has any questions, please write them in the comments, and I will try to respond to them in a timely manner. Always interrupt us if you want to, because we can really ramble on. We are also going to avoid spoilers as much as humanly possible. So, woo, let's begin. So, whoever wants to take this first question can. What was your favorite part of the book?
Rebecca, you want to go first, or do you want me to take this one?
No, I can go first. It's
Thank you.
tricky answering this question without giving away spoilers, so I will do my best. I have, I would say, two favorite parts of the story, and
Okay.
it would be kind of how the relationship between Cassie and Zach starts to form in the beginning of the book, and also this one I have to be very careful with, but there is a point where everything kind of leads towards the climax. In Egypt, obviously, Egyptian Heir, it's going to get there at some point. And when they enter the place that is talked about throughout the whole entire story and what everything is leading to, once you get there, it's like that is where it all comes together, and that's a really interesting part to me.
Awesome. Cool. Amanda, what about yourself?
For me, it wasn't so much a single part that was a favorite. It was more the fact that it was local, which was kind of awesome. The idea of just reading an area described and then trying to figure out what street it was on or what neighborhood it was in, and that was a lot of fun.
And just so that anyone who's watching who's not from Saskatchewan or Canada, it is set in Saskatoon, which is one of the two major cities in the province of Saskatchewan. We're the rectangular one in the center of the country, if you don't know. But yeah, it's set in Saskatoon, but it does, like, the book does explore more places as it continues. So, but sorry, Amanda, keep going.
That was basically it.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to.
So it was kind of cool seeing the landmarks on paper.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. And I did. No, I just brain farted, so I'm sorry. I will move on. What was your least favorite part of the book?
I'll start with that one.
Oh,
No, it was really only one part. There was one chapter that was like 35 pages long. And knowing ahead of time that it was going to be a long read, it probably took me 4 or 5 days before I started that chapter. Before bed, I like putting a bookmark at a chapter. So that one was a little hard to get through, that one chapter. But once I got through it, the rest was pretty good.
Yeah, and I have to apologize for that. Unfortunately, in my delirium of sleep deprivation, because I was editing during the time of like, I just had a newborn, so I was sleep deprived and not thinking clearly and editing during that. So that was great. So I figured out why there was a few really long chapters. It's because I accidentally deleted a chapter point and just like elongated a chapter. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. I am correcting that in the second one. Yes.
for me, this is more of a personal preference thing, as the beginning is a bit of a slow burn before you start getting into like everything that happens. And that is something that other people can really enjoy. It's not necessarily a bad aspect of the book at all. It's just a personal preference where I like to see something happen just a little bit earlier. I like getting into the action, but again, just personal preference on that.
No, that makes sense. And everyone has their own personal preference. I never feel attacked by someone explaining their personal preference, because there's never such a thing as a perfect book that everyone is going to love, right? There's always going to be an issue. And unfortunately, with the slow burn, I had to introduce things well for the rest of the books because it is a trilogy, right? So, yeah, but I understand why that would be negative. So. Is there any others? Or no? Okay. So which scene stuck out to you the most?
I would say there is a scene, again, trying not to get into too much detail, but you're going from Canada to Egypt, so there is a plane involved. And there is a lot that happens on this plane. And so I wouldn't say it's like one particular scene, because there's quite a bit that goes on through there, but just like, that's a very intense moment. And so that part does stick out to me, because it's like, oh God, there, Zach has a hard time and Cassie has a hard time on that plane.
Poor Zach. Poor Zach throughout the entire book, but oh, poor guy. But yeah, no, it makes sense. Did you like the way that it was written? Because obviously they're on a plane and in a very enclosed space. So was there any like scenes that you were like, that doesn't seem like that would happen type thing, or are you all good with that?
I mean, saying that it was on a plane, obviously you can get in your head a general size. And I
Right.
do believe it's mentioned that it is more of a private plane. Yeah. So I have never been on one of those. I've never seen one. So it's hard for me. Like, I guess there's different types. There's smaller and there's bigger private planes. So I'm assuming that the one in this was a little bit bigger. So it was just kind of wrapping my head around the exact size of what this plane could possibly be. But I wouldn't say that there was anything that seemed impossible, just
Right.
more, or like didn't make sense, just more or less, okay, just how big is this private area?
Yeah. I don't know if I kept it in there, but at one point I did. At one point there was a draft that said what type of plane it was. It's a private jet that's considered a Boeing. So if you know what a Boeing is, it's one of the bigger jets. So, yeah. So it's a larger private plane.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. But, Amanda?
A couple scenes stood out, and they were all same topic, and those were all the bullying scenes.
Yeah, sorry.
Reading one scene where I went, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, and like, so the first bullying scene actually did happen to me. So basically that first scene when she's grabbed and she defends herself, like when I originally wrote this book, I was 13, and I actually had to punch my bully to stop him from like bothering me anymore, right? So I defended myself in that way. I did get into trouble, but not too much trouble because he didn't want to admit that he got beat up by a girl. So, woo, winning. So, that scene definitely struck home to me. But the other scene when he pretends to, or he does cut himself to make her get into trouble, that scene was something that if someone's trying their darndest to make someone's life just hell, that would be something that I would do to get them into trouble, right? So, because I'm petty, like,
thought that through. Like, what would I do to really bully somebody?
I was gonna bully someone. That's what I would do. So, exactly. So,
good to know. Don't get on Janelle's bad side.
I am petty, and I will go after you with a vengeance. So, yeah. All jokes aside. Or like totally joking. Sorry, not jokes aside. Totally joking.
I feel like it's not 100% relatable because everybody experiences bullying differently and to different extents. But I feel like everybody gets bullied at some point in their life to some extent. So having bullying scenes in there in different ways makes it a little bit more relatable and explains a lot, especially to Cassie's character.
Yes. Yeah. Because, like, we'll get to this question, Rebecca, but I know that you don't like Cassie too much as like a character, but it's understandable why she behaves the way that she does because of everything that's going on around her. So, yeah.
It's not so much that, like, you can't say I don't like her. I'd say at the beginning, she, and partway throughout, is coming into herself. She can be a little moody. We'll go with that.
Good description.
Good work. Which characters did you like the best, and which ones did you like the least?
Okay, so we're leading into that. Again, I wouldn't say that I straight out dislike her. Just maybe from reading at an adult view, some of the stuff that she does can be considered really childish. And the way that she behaves, it's just like, oh, come on, girl. You know? but I know that, you know, she was written in that way. There's some books that have a character that you dislike, and it was not the author's intention for you to dislike them. They just thought this was the greatest character. And it's actually like, no, actually they're not. But you, knowing you have plans for this, it's just like, okay, I can see throughout the book where this is going, where she is growing more into herself and isn't always a brat.
Yeah.
But I mean, she does have a lot that she's going through, and so some of those things are understandable. It's everybody reacts to stress in different ways.
Yeah.
And for favorite character, I would actually say that I do really like how you wrote Victor. I'm very interested in him as a character. And Zach made an impression from the beginning, just from how he, without giving too much away, just completely flipped sides like a coin. It was like one moment, you're my target. Next moment, it's like, you're my target in a different way. And so it's like, okay, why is that happening? And then you just learn that he's got all this stuff going on, and he's a very resourceful young man. And unfortunately, a lot happens to him.
Yeah, and he takes it because he's a protector type. So he takes everything that happens to him, and he deals with it.
Deals with it.
Deals with it. Yeah, it's a poor guy. And unfortunately, I can't say things get better for him in the second or third one, but he does become mentally stronger. Like, you know that he's physically stronger, but he becomes mentally stronger because he figures out how to deal with certain situations without giving too much away in the second and third one.
Yeah.
But yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Amanda.
Yeah. Nice. Of course, the henchmen were all creepy jerks. So, I mean, you're meant to hate them. But I like Rebecca's comment. Like, I like how they were written. They're still horrible people, but they were written really well. Yeah. But one of I wasn't a huge fan of Cassie either. I'm childish and whiny. But it was actually her brother that I found almost more annoying. Like, he didn't seem to believe in her at all.
Yeah. Which one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That took them all in. Yeah. And didn't even want to hear what she had to say anymore. Now, mind you, it did look convincing that she was supposed to be the bully, even though she was the one being bullied.
Yeah, so Zach did a good job with getting her into trouble, and nobody wants to believe her because she's already been acting out in previous schools, even before her parents passed away. And then Michael's reacting poorly because he's still grieving. He's all of a sudden got to take care of 3 more people, like 3 of his siblings. He doesn't know how to be the parent in that situation. He wants to be the big brother who consoles and coddles and stuff, but he can't. And he knows that because he doesn't want them to get taken away, especially Vince and Cassie. So, because they're still underage, right? So the way that he behaves makes more sense. And like, when you're reading the book, you have to understand that most of it, even if it's written in third person, is Cassie's perspective, right? Yeah. So in Cassie's perspective, Michael's just not listening to her. He doesn't care what she says. Everything.
She's now the father figure, and she's gonna hate him
exactly. Like she thinks that he betrayed her when he moved to Saskatoon from Edmonton, and she thought that because they were really close together. So she thinks that that's the worst betrayal that could ever happen. Obviously, she's proven wrong um, by other people. But like, she thought that Michael's betrayal of moving without any notice or whatever was the worst betrayal. And she's holding a huge grudge. So, yeah. So, unfortunately, Michael has to contend with adolescent unease.
Well, especially when they were so close. Their relationship is described before he moves as like being as close as a brother and sister can get. They're friends. And he takes care of her and she adores him and he teaches her things. And then all of a sudden it's just he gets up and leaves. And so it's like you can understand his perspective. He wants to make a better life for himself and do these things for himself. But it's also like his little sister that just adored him is now alone, at least in her eyes. Like, there goes my big support, my biggest supporter.
Yeah. She's basically left alone, and she just doesn't understand. Like, she's close to her parents, but as soon as her parents pass away, she is nobody, because Vince and Brant are teenagers as well, and they don't really hang out with her. They're not super close, right? So her close support was Michael, and she didn't have that anymore. So
and then one of the characters I really liked was actually Cassie's friend, Rebecca.
Yeah. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Not the name was not related at the time, even if
Even
if
though
it's
my brother is actually Mark.
I know, it's hilarious. It was totally unintended, but Rebecca's a huge support for her. So So what did you like about Rebecca? Hi, Rebecca.
She did her best, because I mean, she's the same age as Cassie, but she saw the struggles Cassie was going through and was there supporting her. She became that one person that saw the abuse and believed in her. And to the extent a teenager can help with that kind of thing, tried to make her feel better. Even though just take her shopping. If that's all you know as a teenage girl, you're still trying. And it was nice to see somebody trying to support her when nobody else believed her.
Yeah. Like, Rebecca believed her when she was like, because she asks her, did you actually cut Zach? Like, you just cut the biggest bully in the school. Like, what the heck's wrong with you? And then Cassie's like, no, I swear I didn't. And then Rebecca, without any, like, doubt, she just believed her. Mm-hmm. And the shopping trip was something that Rebecca thought would help Cassie, but it ended up causing more issues, unfortunately. But it was still beneficial for her, like, because she at least had some support. So, yeah. So, who was your favorite bad guy, other than Victor? Because there's just a conniving schemer of
I didn't really like any of them. I mean, I don't know. Buddy was in an interesting position.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, written as a character favorite bad guy, not favorite as I like him, but favorite as he had a interesting role to play. I agree with would be Buddy. Agree with Amanda. He was in a tough position, and you kind of like are hoping at one point that just maybe he'll kind of end up helping Cassie, and your hopes maybe crashed a little bit. You don't know that for sure. But he's definitely one of the more oh my goodness, I'm trying to come up with the word. bigger part
Mhm.
for the villains.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Did the setting of the book impact you at all? I know Amanda mentioned that it did a little bit for her, but it being set in Saskatoon, did it help you guys
Well,
like, situate or recognize anything?
yeah, like Amanda said, it was really fun to kind of think about, oh, okay, where is that happening? Does this building actually exist? Have I seen it? Have I walked past it? Even just seeing our city's name, Saskatoon, in a book was kind of like, whoa, our place is real. We have a real city. Or you could look at it and be like, Saskatoon, they definitely made that name up. So but knowing exactly what Saskatoon looks like, it's just like, oh, I feel like I can really actually picture this in my head. Even if maybe that specific school doesn't actually exist, I felt like I could picture it as my own school or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Egyptian Heir, there's obviously an undercover agency, the FUA. Did you guys kind of figure out where it was located?
I did not figure that out, but I tried.
Yeah, not quite.
Where would you guys assume that it was? Like, location-wise?
Maybe like digging back into my brain here. Maybe like off downtown-ish, not direct downtown, but you know, kind of like I feel like it would be in an area that you would not expect it to be.
Yeah, there's back alleys with like the big garbage dumpsters and milk crates and wooden crates and things like that. So there are some pretty tight alleys downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be somewhere down there for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I did post a video today that
about as you pass by the mall, and then it's Midtown Plaza.
Yeah.
It's like, that's awful.
Yeah, so I posted that video today, so it kind of gives a hint on where I imagined it to be, but of course, like, it's very vague because it's not a real building, unfortunately. But it's down in there, but it's definitely near the river because that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, good old.
We do have a nice river here.
We have what? Sorry?
Nice river here. Don't go in it, but it's pretty to look at.
It gets scary when you swim in the river and it's like high and it's got a fast current and stuff.
Why I don't swim in the river.
It was crazy. All the joys. I do not think that anyone should swim in the river. It gets scary very fast. Was there any decisions that any characters made that infuriated you?
There is a part where Cassie is specifically told not to do something, and she does it, and it puts someone in danger. I know why she was tempted to do it and why she wanted to do it, but she shouldn't have done it.
The big red button.
The first decisions I was questioning in that book.
Yeah. She makes decisions because she thinks that she's the only one that can problem solve problems, and that's the biggest issue that she has is she doesn't rely on anyone else. She only relies on herself. And like, unfortunately, that's something that you see in like every movie and book is they make a stupid decision that affects like everyone. And unfortunately, she fell into that category. But
Big red button. Don't.
the big red button. Do not touch anything.
Yeah.
Big red button must touch.
Yep.
But it's something that you can't, like, I don't know. The biggest thing is I think people need to realize that they don't have to do things on their own all the time. If they're in trouble, they should at least tell someone, right? And it's infuriating in like our brains, right? But in a 14, 15-year-old brain, that's what makes sense, because if she tells anyone, she's been getting into trouble when she tries to tell the truth. So why would she want to trust anyone? Because she's just going to keep on getting into trouble. So she's taking it upon herself to fix her problems.
And it's quite impossible to make choices without it impacting somebody else somehow. So saying like in every movie somebody does something that gets everybody into trouble, or you know, it's kind of that can be considered realistic as well. Maybe not necessarily our world is hanging in the balance of one button that brings down an army of monsters or something. But generally, a lot of your choices impact others. And so it's not obscene, really. Other than the fact that in your brain, you're reading this and she's told, don't do, and she do. So
don't do it. Yeah. And like that's a lesson that she definitely has learned in the second one, because she's a lot more cautious about her actions in the second one. So you'll be happy about that. Because she has learned that every action has a consequence, whether it's positive or negative. There's always a consequence to every choice or action that she makes. So because she does even realize that later on in the book that if I hadn't done something, then this entire situation wouldn't have happened. So
one of the most interesting thing about books for me, or movies, is character growth. So having a character who does start even in the realm of like not agreeing with them or not really liking them, and then changing not completely, because obviously they still have to be the same person, but realistically to the point where you can see the growth throughout the storyline, is always one of my favorite aspects of a book or a series. One of my absolute favorite series, I hated the main character, and I mean hated, throughout the entire first book. And now it's a series that I can go back to all the time.
Yeah. Because you knew that they were going to grow, because they were...
Well, I didn't necessarily know that he was going to grow, but everything around the rest of the book was like, okay, you know, even if he has to continue this way, the rest of it is very, like, there was a lot of characters in this book that I'm talking about. So, yeah, just a very different story.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, whenever I'm reading, the characters have to show some type of growth. Like Rebecca, you know this, we're both anime watchers, and like you tried to get me to watch Naruto. I'm gonna butcher the name, and then you're like, oh my god. So the main character, I couldn't get through it because the main character wasn't like progressing. He just remained obnoxious for a long period of time. I couldn't do it. You had to grow and develop a little bit faster than that. But like, yeah, there has to be development in every book, and like that's a style that I prefer and like. but obviously that accounts to more of the slow burn as well, is you have to develop the character that they're super like one way, and then they kind of like ease into stuff. Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah. Woo. Amanda, did you say, sorry, we went into so many tangents. Did you say who infuriated you?
I have not said yet.
My bad.
Buddy was a little frustrating because I honestly thought he was going to turn into a good guy. I expected him to flip. I was like, nope, he's going to be a good guy. He's going to help. And yeah.
Like
I understand why. Because Victor is not a guy you mess with.
Mhm.
And he knew that if he flipped, he'd end up dead. So he had to go along with it. But there was one point where I was like, he is so close. He's thinking about not kidnapping her, basically, right? Like, yeah.
And I tossed up the idea of the redemption thing and him being redeemed later on. But I don't think that's where his story is kind of going, unfortunately. Characters kind of take a life of their own. You have an idea for them when you're writing, and originally I really, really wanted Buddy to be suddenly like betray her trust 100% and then redeem himself.
Mhm.
But
He had other plans.
everything that's going around with him, and like greed is a very powerful thing, and the diamonds are they have an essence to them that causes people to do things that a person wouldn't normally do, right? Because Buddy's an archaeologist, or not an archaeologist, I'm sorry. Buddy is an architect. And he hears this story that like sometime in his life he had heard way back then, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is my chance to get the millions and the money and have the life that I really want, or whatever. No more people telling me that I'm doing a bad job or having to struggle to live type thing, right? And yeah, he just never, yeah, he might redeem himself, but the way that it's writing right now, it's not.
Mhm.
He's just not going to. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how his story really turns out. But he's somebody that in his own way he's caring, but it's a manipulative caring. So it's actually an abusive, like, relationship with Cassie and Buddy. So
yeah,
you get him, Jeff. That's good. But yeah. So yeah, Buddy's an interesting case. I don't know. So okay.
Do we get
If you
questions now? Do we get to
Yeah.
ask questions now, or do you have one more for us?
No, unless you really want me to throw a curveball at you.
Oh.
No, I can ask you questions.
Okay.
You're just trying to avoid answering this.
Oh. If you could ask me anything, what would it be? We will try to avoid spoilers. Try.
Amanda, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go with if your book ever gets made into a movie, who would you want to play the main characters?
So, I don't know about any of the good guys. I've been like trying to think about this because like every like book always has that like every author has that idea of like, what if? Oh my gosh, dreams, right? But I don't know, like I don't know who would play like Zach or Cassie because they're young, so it's really hard to find young actors for that. And like, oh, I knew Mr. Edwards, but I forgot his name, so I'm not gonna mention that guy. I could visualize him, and yeah, but it's not coming up. But for the bad guys, so the Rock for Jonathan, because I don't know, I think that being a bad guy for one, like a serious, like no garbage taken bad guy would be cool to see for him. And like he's the epitome of what I imagine, except for Jonathan doesn't really work out his legs, so he's kind of like a V. If that describes anything. But like just yeah, body type, everything just perfect. And it'd be just so funny. And then for Victor, because he's supposed to be this suave, like easy, like he can weave into someone's life and manipulate them without too much effort, right? Because he's a good-looking man. So I'd probably say Matt Boomer for that. If you guys don't know, just look at White Collar, and yes. Yeah. So Matt Boomer probably for Victor. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough actors. Like, it would be super cool because I started really getting into Egyptology and stuff because of The Mummy. So Brendan Fraser just popping out of nowhere, like just to be one of the characters would be like amazing. But but
You
that's
need to
just
write in a character that he would fit in then. Just put in a random character that you're just like, this is Brendan Fraser.
This is now your character. No one else can play this guy. But yeah, I don't know. Like, does that answer your question? I don't know for females. Like, there's not a lot of female characters in this book, so I don't know who would be good for the female characters. So yeah, sorry. Rebecca, what's your question?
I want to know what your favorite part was to write, and also, if you have time, the most difficult one. So not necessarily you disliked writing it, but it was hard for you, whether it's just emotionally, it was emotionally taxing, or it was like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure how to make this work.
Oh, okay. So my favorite scenes are to write are more the psychological scenes. So anything that somebody is wavering on a decision, or that there's a lot of mental anguish going on, because obviously I'm a sadist in that way. Um, but I like the buddy scene, that he's wavering on whether to betray Cassie or not. Obviously that time he ran out of time, but like that scene was 10 pages, and then I super condensed it because I was like, oh, I could really go hardcore with this. And I was like, nah. And then like, I don't don't know. A lot of the scenes that I really enjoyed writing are ones that I wrote when I was super young, and I've just like expanded or condensed things. So it's really hard to tell which ones I really enjoyed writing at that time. But the hardest scene, without spoilers, a character dies that I really loved, and that was a really hard scene to write because they had no, I can't say anymore. It was a really hard scene to write that one. I actually like cried, and then one of my friends who was like the only person who I ever let read the book before it was published, when she read the book, she texted me and like yelled at me, and she was like,
how could you do that?
Killed them! Yeah. And like learning about people's past is always fun too when I'm writing. When I'm kind of like, okay, these guys have been jerks forever, but this is why they're a jerk. It doesn't like condone why they're behaving that way, but it makes sense why they're behaving that way, right?
Few books to make separate individual little, like just tiny little books about the certain characters, so you learn their backstory. Do you do anything like that?
Yes. So all of the bad guys. So okay, this one has 6 bad guys in it, and all of them have like, I think Victor's is the longest, and it's about 40 pages, 50 pages.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'll probably eventually get those ones out because there's always a reason why someone is
The way they
how
are.
they are. Yeah, exactly. So I will probably eventually publish those ones, but it's interesting to know all their backgrounds and stuff. And like Zach's background even is sad and traumatic, and which explains why like why he behaves how he does is explained because of his background. But yeah, so I don't know. I like the psychological stuff. I'm a psychological person, so anything that I can like really get in someone's brain is amazing. Hopefully that answers your question, Rebecca.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Amanda, do you have another question, or does anyone in the
Well, yeah, I was going to say, does anybody who's watching this have any questions?
I know it's a fairly new book, so there's probably not too much, and we're talking about this is hard. The Egyptian Heir.
Pick up the other copy you had. Jeez.
Sorry. But it's, I don't know. It seems backwards to me, but it's probably backwards. But
yeah.
Anyways, talking about the Egyptians. This is my debut book, so yeah. But yeah. So
that first one was, I need a new book to read. Where can I get it?
Oh, so if you live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, McNally Robinson has it, and Indigo has it on 8th Street. If you don't live in Saskatoon, Amazon.ca, Amazon.com. Kindle is being weird right now. I don't know if it's available right now through Kindle, but it generally is through ebook, and it is available in soft, hard, and ebook copies. So
The other question that I saw was, when is the next one coming out?
So because I'm a self-published author, I made a deal with my husband when I published that I had to hit a certain amount of books in sales type thing to be able to justify the second book coming out. So my goal is to have it okay. My goal is to have the second one coming out in November of 2023, but as long as everything goes accordingly.
Uh,
Track for reaching your goal? Like, it's going well, I'm assuming?
Yeah, like there was some, as a first-time author, it's always tough because you don't know what to expect. And like you hear about books just flying off the shelves with certain authors and stuff. And I'm like, that is a very rare occurrence. Generally, you sell maybe 1 or 2 books a month type thing. So it was discouraging earlier on, but I've come to terms that 1 book sale is great. So yes, I am on a good trajectory.
Yeah.
it's going.
This is what I write, guys. I write, I don't speak. Because words do not come out properly. So I'm on a good path to hitting the goal when I'm wanting to hit the goal. So yeah.
If there was a situation where you don't quite hit that goal enough that you aren't able to publish when you want, and you have people like, I don't know, me, for example, or others who would like to still read the next one, what are you going to do? I mean, you have people who have already bought the book and really enjoy it. And like you said, even if you have 1 or 2 new people that love your story, I can only imagine that you would want to let them know what happens.
Yes. So the goal is, I want to try and do all 3 books within 6 years, right? So that's the goal. So if I can't do the second one, because once I get a second one out, then there's going to be more attention to 2 books rather than just 1, right? So I'm hoping that it will I'm hoping that even if I don't publish the second one in 2023, it will be 2024, and then by 2026 or whatever, it would be good, right? So, yeah. Or 2027, because that would be awesome to land on number 7. If you know, you know. But, yeah, so, yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things. But I'm hoping that it will be good. And, like, my husband's not so strict that the world is not going to implode. But,
well, don't worry. We know people, including him. We can help with that.
Exactly. So, yeah, so we'll see. But, yeah, obviously my priorities right now are my family. So the books take, because having a 1-year-old is great. She just figured out how to crawl up on top of a couch, and Nightmares, nightmares. What was the hardest part to publish your book? So, um, the way that self-publishing works is I went through an actual like self-publishing company. There are people that do a different type of self-publishing, but I went through Friesen Press, which is a Canadian company. And the month that I actually was like, okay, I am doing this, I'm putting down my first deposit and doing like a payment plan type thing, I ended up finding out I was pregnant that same month after I put down the first deposit. So I couldn't like back out at that time because I was like, so I was like, hey, and I didn't realize that my editing was going to land around the same time as having a newborn. And that was fun. And making decisions with newborns is the hardest thing in the world. Because my brain wasn't working. I think, though, that the hardest part of publishing was actually getting confident enough to take that step, because it's scary when you've been working on it since you were 13 that you all of a sudden are like, I'm going to actually share this story with people, and it's a story that I don't know if people are going to like or whatever, right? So that's probably the hardest part, other than making decisions, because I'm a poor decision maker, about like size and like formatting and like what I want my back to look like. Like these are things that you have to decide on. Like I had to decide on all of this stuff, and um anyways, yeah, so that was probably the hardest part of publishing, unfortunately, but yay. Do you guys have any other questions?
Do you have tips for anybody who is interested in doing something like self-publishing?
Yep. Anything you wish you would have done differently?
If you're self-publishing, be mentally prepared for negativity, but always remember that somebody else loves your work, so they should be the ones that you really focus on, not the negative people. In January, which is when I was the most discouraged, I had a bunch of people just being like, well, I don't like your style, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. And I was like, I could have gone and attacked them, right? And been like, whoa, blah, right? But instead, I was like, well, okay, so my style isn't for you. I'm sorry about that. It's what I like to write, and do that.
Yeah, they don't have to read it if they don't like your style. Then they can go find a style they like.
Exactly. Not every book, again, is perfect for every single person, right? Like there's people out there that hate Harry Potter. There's people out there who hate Lord of the Rings. There's people that hate Game of Thrones or ACOTAR or anything like that, right? Like there's going to be mixed reviews no matter what you write or how you write, right? So definitely write the way that you want to. My biggest regret was not focusing on libraries. I haven't really dealt with too many libraries, and I'm trying to fix that. But like libraries are where people start their reading journey when they're young, right? Like when you're in elementary school, you go to the school library and you pick out your book that you're going to read, right? And I don't know what happens, but as soon as you become an adult, it's like libraries don't even matter. And it's the bookstores. But I'm like, the libraries are there for access, right? For all, right? Like anyone can get a library card. Anyone can go into the library and pick a book that they want to read, borrow it, and return it without spending a dime, right? So I kind of like, as someone who spend a lot of time overcoming my issues with reading, I spend a lot of time in libraries, and I'm sad that I didn't focus on libraries. So I'm hoping that I can do some better work with libraries soon, because that was bad that I lost my, yeah, I just lost focus on that, and I focus on the bookstores, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, like obviously more book sales mean more circulation or whatever, but like, yeah, it's not beneficial.
I hate to admit it, but I also have completely forgotten about libraries in my old age. And so hearing you say that, actually, I think that is a really good idea. It's a brilliant idea. Every single school has a library. And they're everywhere. And like you said, they are free access for people. So somebody who maybe can't even afford a book, but they want to read this story, and you want to be able to reach out to those people who maybe will enjoy it, even if they can't contribute towards its sales. So I highly encourage that. If that's in your brain, I think that is a wonderful idea.
Yeah. And like I love the little, like in some neighborhoods, there's those little like
The borrowing
book thing, right?
Yep.
Like, brilliant. I have one just down the street from me, and I'm like, this is awesome. And it's the nicest couple who have it in front of their house, and they're out every morning taking a look at their books to see.
Have you put a copy of your book in there yet?
Huh? No, I've been meaning to, but I've run out of copies. Yeah, I have to put one in, but I've run out of copies, so I have to. This is like one of my only copies that I have left. So next time I buy books, I have to do that. But
that's technically a good thing if you're running out of copies.
Yeah. Yay. But yeah, another thing is if you're self-publishing, because social media is such a big thing. Like, I dislike social media a lot. It's really tough for me to get out there and want to do this, right? So thank you guys for joining me, because it's really tough for me to do this. But I've been finding that you need to get onto social media before you even publish to build your community. If you don't build your community before you publish, it's really hard, because people don't understand your quirkiness or your weirdness or your nerdisms or whatever, right? Like, it's really hard to connect to the right people that you want to connect with, right? So social media is a huge thing.
Don't look so upset about it.
And always enjoy the story that you write. Like, I was taking on a lot of people's ideas and to change my story, and it turned into a story that I hated, so I changed it back, and it's the way that I want my story told. People can write their own stories if they want a certain story. So yeah, but yeah. Anyways, long story short, that's what I would recommend for people to publish. But yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, well, for me, I don't know if anybody else has one in the comments, but you mentioned that you have had some negative feedback about your book, and I'm really happy that you're able to overcome that. But what's been your favorite part about publishing so far? Have you received, other than obviously, like us who really did enjoy your book, if has there been anybody else that you don't know who has contacted you and told you a bit about how they read your book?
So a coworker that I used to work with, she bought the book the first week. And ever since, every like few months, she'll text me and be like, "When's the next one coming out? I'm dying. I want to know." And I'm like, "Okay." um, and then, what is this? Oh, what's this? I don't know. And then so my age group is young adults, right? So young adults, a true young adult book is anywhere from 12 to 18 plus, correct? And so this, like, I don't want to call him a boy, teenager. This male teenager, he read the book, and he was actually my very first review, and he's been asking his, I think his aunt or his grandma, who bought him the book, and he keeps asking, like, "When's the next one coming out? When's the next one coming out?" So that's really cool, because the age group that I'm wanting to like the book are, and it's helping, like, it's helping them overcome certain issues in like high school and those young years, right? And it's exciting to see teenagers reading, because in Canada, don't know if you guys know, fun fact, only like 25% of teenagers actually read for fun.
What?
Right? Yeah, it's super low now, right? Like,
So much higher when we were younger.
yeah, it's so sad, and it's like, that's in Canada, so I don't know about the rest of the world. But like, that's a very sad stat that people aren't reading too much. More people will begin reading in their adulthoods rather than in their teenager years. And it's just because they have so much going on. So it's amazing to hear that there are teenagers out there who will read it and enjoy it, because that is the whole purpose of the writing. Is it's supposed to entertain, but also supposed to help encourage them that they can reach goals and stuff, right? Because obviously I've been working on this for how long?
Is that statistic based on just like hard copies of books, or is it also on like, digital and everything?
Where it stuck to me, that stat. I don't know exactly where I found it from, and actual true information. And like, somebody that I know would totally be like, "Did you know that 80% of stats are made up on the spot," type thing? Anyways, not made up. I don't exactly know where I located it. I will send you the statistics when I find it again.
Well, I'm curious if that's like, it's like hard copy books, or if that's like everybody has their phones, right? And so I also have stories that I will read on my phone. So I'm curious if that is included in it, because it would still be considered reading for entertainment, even if it's on a digital device. So if you find that,
Whoa.
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you. It was totally Amanda. But yeah, so
it's probably when I touched. My husband's trying to call me, so I.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've had more positive than negative, especially after January. January was a hard month, but once I like realize, like, just let all the negativity float away and focus on the positives. I've had some great conversations. Like, I've done a live with Caleb from TikTok, and I've had many conversations with a bunch of book talkers and Instagrammers and stuff, and like, great. They haven't quite read the book, but good conversations with people who are going through like the self-publishing and stuff. So that's positive, because there always has to be writers, otherwise we'll run out of books.
Like, okay, connection.
Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry, there was a thing that popped up on my phone, and I was like, "What is that?" What did you say, Rebecca?
Oh, I just said even if they haven't necessarily read it yet, it creates connections. So
Yeah.
Anything like that can, well, not anything like that, but a lot can be take positive from it. So keep going.
Yes, and community is the biggest thing. So finding people like-minded is the best way. So, any other questions?
I think I've asked you everything.
Okay. Anything? No? Good?
No, I think.
So, Amanda, I'm just going to touch on a question that you've asked me a couple of times, and then we'll call it a day. So, you've asked me a couple of times if there's going to be more Egyptian history.
Right.
So, the first one didn't really focus on Egyptian history because a lot
of information about Egypt, right?
Yeah, Cassie's perspective is most of the book, and she's a teenager. She doesn't understand that, like, the tomb that Oboko is buried in is a mastaba, right? Like, I probably butchered that name, but, like, she doesn't understand that, right? And she would describe it as, like, there's a mastaba. It's flat-based and, like, square-shaped and blah, 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 right? She just views it how she views it. In the second one, there's not too much that's learned. There is a bond that's created through the diamonds that is unexpected and will eventually increase Cassie's outlook on the diamonds history. Not really Egyptian history, but like the diamonds history. The second one more focuses on the primary bad guys, who I can't say who they are, which provides some background on them, right? So you kind of learn about someone's past that is talked about and asked about but never revealed. So
cool.
Fun?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Amanda and Rebecca, for joining me. It was
Of course.
Anyone interested in reading hold on, I'll grab it, the Egyptian Heir, can, by following the link in my bio on Instagram, to the EgyptianHeir.com website, where more background is on the Egyptian Heir. And you can also find all the several options to purchase. There's so many options. Whether you prefer softcover, hardcover, or ebook. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight, and have a fabulous evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.